Awesome. Welcome, everyone. We're live on one of our first workshops from this series, part of the workshop series that we're doing with Mode. Hey, everyone. My name is Fede, Crypto Fede, as some of you know me. I'm head of DevRel for Mode, and I'm here with Billy Jitsu from API3. Hey, Billy.
Hey, what's up, man? How's it going?
All good, all good. Thanks a lot for being here. I'm super excited today to talk about API3 and the things that you guys have to offer to builders building on Mode. Do you want to present yourself, Billy, a little bit, what you do at API3 and what you guys
Yeah,
do?
yeah, for sure. I am Dev Relations for API3. Everybody knows me as Billy Jitsu on the streets. We could also call me Billy. It's A-OK. I'll be doing, you'll probably see my face around a lot. I'm going to be doing a ton of workshops about infrastructure, making oracles exciting, hopefully one day. So we are a price feed solution or an oracle solution. We're going to get into that, like all the details in just a bit. But yeah, if you see me like in like most of the events, I'm the one doing the workshops. I am the one doing like the online workshops. If you're asking questions on the Discord, I'm probably the one that's going to be replying, if not some of the other team. But yeah, we have like a lot of information to throw at you at once. You don't have to follow along. I have a lot of links and a lot of tutorials on there for reference. So just I want you to sit back, relax. If you have questions, ask away. But yeah, I'm ready to do this.
Awesome. Yeah, the idea of this is it's a live workshop for you to enjoy right now. But if you cannot watch the full thing, or if you had any other and stuff to do, it's going to be recorded and uploaded to our YouTube channel to live forever in there for your reference later, whenever you're down coding and you need some little help. Awesome. Then I'll just go to share your screen
Cool.
and we can start.
Awesome. All right. Oh, Fetty and billboard mode.
Really.
Cool. Anyways, so API3, real world data for Web3 straight from the source. So what does that mean? So we are a first party Oracle solution, meaning that we don't do any Oracle data ourselves. We have the people or the APIs run their own air nodes to run the data themselves. So that way we're not like a middleman. All we do is aggregate the data. The API3 services that we provide, people get that confused a little bit. Like API3, we're just an API. We're actually a smart contract level API. So we have something called Chain API, the ability to bring your own API data and use that data on chain. A really good example is if you have your own in-person race, or you're running like an MMA contest or something, and then you get the results on some website from an API. Chain API will let you get that data and then bring that data on chain, so you can do like maybe online bets and settle everything online through a smart contract level to keep everything fair. We have QRNG, which is a random number generator. We all know that EVM is deterministic, so having random numbers is a very, very key source. There is no token required to do that, just requires a little bit of gas. What we're going to cover today are our DAPIs, which is basically price feeds on chain that's constantly live updated. And then our latest product, which will be dropping very soon, is the OEV network, which is Oracle Extractable Value. It allows users for the ability to bid to update a price feed. So we're basically decentralizing the way oracles are updated. Who am I? Kind of did a quick intro. I'm Billy Jitsu, developer advocate for API3. QR code if you like to follow my socials. Bit of warning, I'm 50 technical, 50 nonsense. If you like to see my shenanigans or my takes, follow along. If you have questions, you can feel free to DM me. So it's going to be a series of workshops. The idea is not to be one and done and say, all right, see you guys, have a good one. We're trying to build you guys to become searchers. So today's workshop, which is the first workshop, it's going to be the basic fundamentals of API3, how to get a price feed into your smart contract, right? You're also going to learn how to use an adapter. So like if your code base or you saw something really, really cool on another chain and it's built for another Oracle and you want to, fork this over to Mode, you can. So I'm going to show you how to use an adapter to use another code without having to refactor your code. After this workshop's done and a little bit of time, we're going to work into the second workshop, which is going to cover Oracle Extractable Value, how push and pull oracles work, introduction to the OEV network, and then learn how to do a bid to request to update a price feed. On the third workshop, we're going to show you how to deploy Aave. Yeah, it's a big one. We might split this up into a couple of sessions here, but you're going to be able to learn to deploy Aave in a CLI tool. You're going to learn all the caveats of how to do that. That's a little bit more intense. We're going to have a couple of prerequisites. You're going to need Docker, maybe a private RPC, because it's a lot of transactions to throw in a short amount of time. And then at the end of it, you're going to learn how to liquidate positions using the OEV network, basically monitor available positions, discover where the profits are, where the health factors are, bid on the OEV network, and then create that execution. And then fourth workshop, number one complaint is well, I don't have enough money to pay back these loans of $1 million. Well, introduction to flash loans, right? We're going to show you how to do a flash loan, how to borrow the money, create the transactions, use the OEV network, pay back the loan, pay back everything, and then keep the profit all within the same transaction. So we're going to show you how to do that in the last workshop. So it's a lot of information all in one. We're going to split it up across, 4.5 workshops, so to say, on there. So this is step one. All right. So this is first workshop is get a price feed to your smart contract. I am looking at the comments. So if you have, comments or anything, I'm kind of watching those over. So here we go. So today's workshop, key learning points is how oracles work, like how Ethereum is isolated and how we solve it, and then how to set up your smart contract and then pick a feed in the marketplace, right? So what is an air node? So right now, smart contracts or Ethereum, it doesn't read anything from the outside world, right? Like it's back in the day, if you had like a PlayStation and someone and your friend had an Xbox, you could not play with each other, right? It was either PlayStation Network or Xbox. I forget the name of it, but now we can, right? Because there's a way to interact and like cross chain. Well, that's what we're doing with APIs. So we have this air node system. That's how API3 handles it. We have an air node where the API data infrastructure uses our AirNode software to bring that data on chain. So they talk with a set of deployed contracts that are set to each chain, and then brings that data onto smart contract levels, where then you can then read it on that level. So then you have communications. And then we know what the price of ETH is, what the price of wrap/BTC, or any asset that we support. So what are DAPIs? It's basically a price feed, right? So price feeds with DeFi is very, very sensitive, so like if one API goes down, it would be the death of DeFi. So what we do is we have multiple sources for our API feed. So like if one is off or one goes down, we still have multiple feeds to read from. We get the average, default of it. And then we bring that data right to you for you to use in a single feed. These are continuously checked. Security is like a number one priority. So, one API failure and we're okay. 10 API failures, then we have something to worry about. And so we have a link to the example QR code. I'm going to leave this up for a second. You don't need to grab it right now, but just a quick example of it. It is taking you right to the repo of this exact code. Has a lot of information on the READMEs, has a breakdown of all the contracts. I even made a video for you. So like there's a video companion video here that basically breaks down what we're going to be covering as well. So like if this workshop left you with a question that you don't have, you can always check out the video as I go step by step. That's how I like to do things. READMEs with a video companion. I like to do full function. We want you to be serious builders, so build something awesome. And then for those that want to join the Discord community for API3, it's right on the, scan the QR code or discord.gg API3 DAO. And then you can ask questions there in the dev support channel. Me and the team will be around the clock. If I'm sleeping, someone else will take care of you. But I'm gonna leave that just for a second, but let's get into building stuff right here. So for this first course, we're not gonna need any stack. It's gonna be right through Remix. It's gonna be really, really simple to get you up and running. I have this base contract ready to go. Just a couple things to notice. Because we want to make sure that this is kind of chain agnostics. I'm keeping Solidity version at 8.19. At 8.20, there is a push 0, so we're not 100% sure if it will work, across all chains, especially with mode. I haven't checked that yet, so we're keeping it at 8.19. So for those that are trying to use 8.22, you may or may not come into problems. With that caveat, on 8.19, we're also using Open Zeppelin's version 4.93 because 5.0 and above implements the push 0 stuff. So then you have to do a couple changes on that. So I'm using it for the ownable contract on there. So just keep that as a heads up. It is already set in the package.json feeds for that on the hard hat example that I put before. All right, so let's just break down this basic contract. Let me grab my GIST here, which is just examples of it. And we're going to go piece by piece. I'm not going to be awkward silence on there where I'm typing stuff out. So I'm just going to copy and paste code in, and then we're just going to break it down. So basically, this isn't a proxy interfaces. We have a whole bunch of interfaces that we just put in a simple import. So we're just going to go ahead and grab this API3 contracts. That's why you're not seeing the contract is API3. It's just interfaces. We're not importing libraries or any subcontracts. The only thing that I am importing is the ownable library from the Open Zeppelin contract. You could also create your own modifier if you don't want to, but just keeping it simple to standard practice. And again, making sure that it's 4.93. And so we have a basic contract layout, and I'm just going to bring out piece by piece each function. So let me go ahead and just grab the first function here. And so doing a set proxy address, right? So what we have to do is let our contract know what price feed we want to read, right? It doesn't know. So I'm going to bring in this variable to get rid of the red line. We're just creating an address public and calling it proxy address, which basically is the price feed address. All we're letting the contract know is, hey, I want to read this price feed and I want to set that to my contract. I'm setting that to only owner because I don't want anybody to adjust that. Imagine you had a borrow lending contract, right? And you set the price for ETH, and then someone sets the price for Dogecoin, and they, deploy it, and then they, drain your funds. You want to have control of what the contract knows what price feed is. And then the next part, which makes it all much more difficult, is, let me grab that function here. And if you have any questions, go ahead and just drop them down here. Hopefully it's pretty clear. Is reading the data feed, right? We've set the feed to what price feed we want, and now we want to read the data feed, right? So all it does is it calls our interfaces iProxy, which we have that import over here to the proxy address. So let's say it's ETHUSD. It just brings a read and it returns two values to us. It's the value, the price, and the timestamp. Timestamp is very important because you want to make sure that your price feed is updated every so often and it's not stale. I'll cover that in just a little bit, but we want to make sure within 24 hours, the price feed has been updated. Otherwise, we know something's stale, and then we're going to do something in our smart contracts like, hey, if it hasn't been updated in this time, lock it down because something isn't right. For a lot of examples, the basic sorry, let me string it back. It comes in an int 224. So that's a different value that most people are used to in smart contracts. So I put a converter in here because a lot of people use examples that use UN256 for a couple of tutorials and whatnot. So I'm just basically doing a typecast tutorial to do UN256 and then return the price and the timestamp. And that's it. That's all you need to do to get a price feed to your smart contract. Anything you do after that is like logic, whether you want to borrow, deposit, or do a like an NFT price feed of consistently $50 if you're making a game, right? You're making some game on mode, and then you want it to always be $50, whether ETH is $1,000 or ETH is $10,000. Using the price feed, we'll say, okay, it's always going to be $50, assuming we have this requirement. So let's go ahead and deploy this. I'm going to make sure I'm forward. Yes.
I don't know if I'm killing you with these questions, but I want to know where does that int 224 comes from? Like, why is that? Do you know?
Oh, it's just the way the standard, because we have positive and negative values basically, and so therefore, it's not negative in Ethereum, right? There's only floating point numbers, so then we just convert it over, but it creates that int 256 of how we bring in data, right? We used to have commodities that could go down and have negative values, so like being able to use both. But right now, our primary focus is working on crypto prices and like LSTs.
Awesome, great,
yeah.
Thank you.
So I'm going to go ahead and deploy this. Let me go ahead. It's already compiled. It's already set to go. I'm going to go make sure I have my injected provider, and let's deploy it. And is this big enough? I'm sorry, I didn't even ask. Is this big enough to see? I kind of made it big.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. Okay.
It looks great. Yeah.
And there we go. Our contract has been deployed. And so right now it won't work because we haven't told it what price feed to read, right? So we're going to go over to market.api3.org. We're going to connect our wallet, and you can see we're on a bunch of different chains, but the most important one right here is Mode, the big M. But we're going to go over to the testnet and then drop it down. And so we're going to look for different prices. You can type in the price feed that you want to see. We're just going to use ETHUSD, but you can see that we have a bunch of different LSTs and different price feeds. If there isn't one that you need, you can always reach out and try to see if we can get it integrated for you. So a quick look, this one's already been activated. You can see the different price feed sources. So like I can see that Coin Paprika has this price. I can see that DXV has this price, and so on and so on. I can verify the DNS of where that's coming from. Actually, let me click that again. I can actually verify that this is the price feed that it's giving me from that source. So we can backtrace it all the way back to like where the API is. So if somebody's acting sus or something's out of the ordinary, what happened to my X here? Oops. Can I click? Oh, let me just hit back. There we go. That I can verify each one. So like if there's any API3 like or API that's not providing the right data, basically they get kicked off. But you can always verify where the source is coming from, and we aggregate all that information to get the mean of it all. And so we're going to go ahead and integrate that. And so here, this is the proxy address set mode. This is what we're going to copy for that ETH/USD. We just have a sampler code of what we just went through, basically reading the data feed. So I'm going to grab that proxy, and I'm going to set my smart contract to read this. Let me go ahead and paste that down. And let me go ahead and confirm that. And the suspense, there we go. And so now we have set our contract to say I want to read ETH/USD. So we're going to go ahead and read that data feed, and let me get that a little bit bigger, and let me zoom this in. So you can see our price feed comes in with two returns: the price right here, which is $33,626.79, and the timestamp of when it was last updated. So I'll go to the market, go back to the page, 3626.79. And that's pretty much it, right? You get your feed, you create a const to the read, make sure that your timestamp is looking good, it's not stale. We have different deviations in price. So I'm just going to go to the purchase of new plan, and you can always see your sources, which one is coming in. We have a 1% deviation, we have 0.5, 0.25, and a 5% deviation. What does that mean? So in a central exchange like Coinbase or like Binance, right? You see things happening every second on the second. It's $3,200.55, and then 2 seconds later it's $3,250, right? And so like every second it's going up and down, up and down. But every transaction on chain costs gas. So if we were to do that on chain, we'd be out of business in a month, right? Just keeping up with every second on the second. So what we have is deviations in price. So depending on your needs, like a borrow lending platform, you only need it within a certain range. So a 1% deviation, for example, is if ETH is $2,000, the next time it's going to update on chain is either going to be $2,020 because 1% of 2,000 is 20, or 1980. So those are the two deviations, right? If you need something a little bit tighter, you would use a 0.25, and it would have a much tighter scope, so it'll be more exact on there. For this tutorial, we're just using a 1% deviation. And
I
that's where
do.
a little bit of, go ahead.
Yeah, I have another little question for you.
Yes.
I usually love. So we have a lot of Oracle solutions out there, right? Of
Mhm.
different sorts and working different ways. So I have two questions.
Yes.
Usually it's like I can see it's super easy to get into the code and just copy paste a few lines and then it's already working, which is awesome.
Yeah.
So can you mention a few like upsides on why API3 and what is like exactly different from you guys in this case? Because the code seems super easy, right? So
Right.
yeah, would love to know what's happening behind the scenes and why it's so great.
Right.
And yeah,
So, I mean, and at the end of the day, everybody gives you a price feed. It's like Pepsi or Coke. Which one do you like? So like what really sets us apart is our approach, right? Is a first party Oracle, right? So we don't host this data, right? So they have to host. So they have their own air node running, and you can verify that data per chain. So we are chained we're deployed on every chain. The word the word in my head is gone,
I
but we're
like that.
deployed natively. We're natively on every chain. So there's no bridge like data. So like if a bridge goes down or anything, that data feed's still live. The only time we're ever down is if the chain goes down, right? And like nothing works. So like that is a very, very unique first party Oracle, means that we can scale as well. So like we don't have to convince providers to say, hey, this mode needs this token on there, can you do it? It's like if they're already supporting API data feed, all right, cool, it's already done. We don't have to convince third party providers to say, can you provide this feed? So we can move very fast. I don't know if you see my tweets of like new feed, new feed, new feed, new feed. It's like
Yeah,
I'm dying.
yeah.
Yeah. So like,
And let me tell you from a mode standpoint, that is
yeah,
actually an issue. Like it's
yeah,
awesome that that's a possibility to add new assets so fast and new prices so fast.
yeah.
And also talking about like the deviation, do you have, yeah, you have there 1%.
Yeah.
I would like to ask you, um, how do you decide how much you need? Of course, it depends on the use case you're using, right? But
Right.
I'm a developer. I want to use this. I want to know exactly how to decide on this number. How do I
Right.
choose 5%, 1%, etc.?
Right. Most standard really depends on how accurate you need to be, and the standard for a long time has been 1%. A lot of oracles have used that. It's been like accepted, depending on your use case. Like if you are using a borrow lending platform, a difference of $20, $30, $50 is not going to be a big thing when you're dealing with millions of dollars or whatnot. Like it's not going to be a horrible thing. If you're dealing with something perpetuals and you're 100 times leveraging something, you need to be as accurate as possible. So like you want to be okay, like right before this block updates, you want to make sure that if I'm billing 3,825 cents, I want to be as close to that price as possible before the next block update. Because if I'm off by $50, that's 100 times leverage. That's a lot of money to be made or a lot of money to be lost. So depending on your specific needs is something that we do. And we would advise you on that. Like if you have a DApp that comes up to us and says, hey, we're looking for oracles, this is how we do it. And it's kind of like a little segue into OEV of like what's really going to set us apart too is, with these deviations, there's nothing perfect, right? So like if you're in a borrow lending DApp, like, like a Aave or Nick Capital or anything like that, you see the position, like something can be liquidated at 2010, right? Going back to that original example, it's like, oh, I can liquidate this at 2010, but we know it's not going to update until 2020, right? Because of the 1% deviation. So like I see it on CoinGecko, I see the price and I want to hit liquidate, but on chain, it does not reflect that. So that's what the second workshop is. You can bid to then say, hey, I would like to update this Oracle to the latest price. I don't mind paying the gas fee for that. And then once you do that, you can update that price on chain and then run the liquidation. So that's basically what OEV is. So instead of like paying MEV prices like on mainnet, we can't really do that on like layer twos because of sequencers. So like MEV is kind of non-existent. Now we are able to do this with OEV, where now you can bid to update the price. And now with the update of price, you can then in that same transaction liquidate the position. So you're basically bidding to win that position. And then the cool thing about OEV is that bid doesn't go to the MEV sequencers. It actually goes back to the DApp. So the DApp actually gets money back. So one thing that's going to set DApp users apart is like there's always clones of borrow lending. It really hasn't been very innovative, right? You borrow something and then you lend it out, or you deposit and then you borrow it out. So like what sets it apart? What if like Aave just comes in and takes your business, right? So what sets you apart is this newfound, income that you get. So like when something gets liquidated, the DApp gets nothing out of it, right? The searcher gets the profit, MEV gets the profit, right? So like that's one of those things that like we're kind of changing the game a little bit with innovation of like, well, now if it gets liquidated, some of that bid fee goes back to the DApp, and so now they can either reward the stakers, they can reward token holders, they can fund public goods, they can do whatever they want with that money because it's brand new to the business model. So that's
Yeah,
something that we are working on. So yeah, for
that's
sure.
awesome. It's a new way of revenue for apps, and I know it gets scary and it may get complicated of all the things that we're mentioning here.
Yeah,
If you're just starting with this, just go ahead, get a price feed, try to
yeah,
get an on-chain price, start playing with that, start
yeah,
looking into the details and how things change. And once you start being more a power user of like oracles and complex and more complex stuff,
yeah,
you'll start seeing all of these issues will start popping up, and you'll see how useful it is to have a good infrastructure.
yeah.
I'll shut up and I'll let you continue now,
Oh yeah,
Joey.
for sure. So like that's the very basic one. Like if you're building from scratch or there's API 3 oracles, awesome, right? But let's say, you found an awesome GitHub repo or like a very popular DApp on another network and it uses a totally different infrastructure, right? So we have an adapter. So just to show you what that adapter looks like is like, you have this DeFi contract that's amazing. Let's say it's Aave, right? And so they use a different oracle. So they reference that oracle and then it goes back and forth, right? And so now you want to, fork Aave and you want to bring it over to Mode. They don't have that oracle on chain, but you still want to use the code base. You can use API 3 oracles, right? So you can have it and then go through the adapter contract. We'll then read our oracle and then bring that data back to you. So just to show you that, let me go ahead and move this to the side and bring this example here. And this is an example of another oracle. Let me just move that over and bring that in. And you're going to see that this data here it does not look close at all to the API3 feed, right? We have this round ID, we have the price that it came in at, we have the timestamp or started at, the timestamp, and then this round ID information, right? So like if I were to try to throw this code base and then use an API3 Oracle, it just would not work. It just doesn't make sense. So this is where we have the adapter, right? And you're going to see a lot of code bases. It's like, it's no secret that aggregator v3 interface is probably one of the most interfaces used. It's been used on mainnet, used on Binance, like a lot of different innovative things that happen on different chains. You can bring that contract to mode without having to change the code base, right? We just have to make sure that we match that same information on this, like when we request it, this is what the smart contract receives, assuming that we have the latest price feed and the latest timestamp. So let's kind of break that down in just a bit here. So let me grab that information and let's put a new contract. And I'm just going to make another contract, just call it other Oracle. So like we got this code base, and I'm just going to, let me grab the other Oracle information here. And it's going to be the same thing, 819. And I'm not really going to break in the code of another Oracle, but it's there, very, very basic. It just has a price feed, right? And it has the get latest answer, which is required. And it's going to return the same data, the round ID answer started at timestamp, basically following that same format. And so let's go ahead and deploy that information. Let me go back here. And it does require a price feed. So let me go ahead and do that. I'm just going to grab a contract here, and it's probably not going to work because that Oracle doesn't exist on mode. And there we go. And so if I get the latest answer, it's just empty data, right? Just nothing, right? So let's try to make this to work. So we're going to bring in the adapter. So I'm going to go ahead and bring in that contract, get the adapter. And this can be adapted to any Oracle solution. Whatever you're feeling, it just has to make sure that it matches what it's requesting. So let me go ahead and grab that data, and we'll break down the code piece by piece, just so it makes sense to you. And this is probably the most confusing part of it, of like the way things work. And so if you get stuck on anything, go ahead and just stop me. But we're following with the 819. And we're making sure that we're using our API3 interface import. So we're still using that iProxy because this contract is going to call out to the other one. Remember, this is going to be our adapter contract. So it's going to call back to the API3 Oracle. So we want to make sure that we're going to that interface. And I'm just calling it API3 aggregator adapter. And so again, this is a very important factor right here. We're making this thing immutable. For each price feed that we do, we have to deploy a specific contract, because when we set our contract price feed, we say, hey, we're going to be ETH/USD on this contract, right? We're assuming that this code is going to read this and it's going to read this, right? And if somebody changes this in the middle, it destroys your entire DeFi thing. So we want to make sure these things are immutable. Once it's done, it's done. If we need to deploy or make any changes, we just deploy another adapter contract and make sure things are in line. So that's one of the things that we do recommend, that it is immutable. And we're just going to deploy it with our proxy. So as soon as we deploy it, that's the price feed we're going to get because it is immutable. And then we're mimicking this round data, right? So all I want is to be able to return the round ID, the answer, started at, updated at, answered in round, based on the other example. So what we're doing is basically that if we look at our other contract, the price feed, right? We basically requested a price feed and it returns two values to us, right? The timestamp and the value. So in the adapter, we want to make sure that we read the data feed, and it's going to return our price feed and the timestamp. And so we have this little function called read data feed. And if you remember, again, like it's basically just reading that feed, returns the value on the timestamp. So we're just going to use that function in here saying, hey, I'm doing a request. Give me the API3 price feed and the API3 timestamp, right? And if we look at the details, let me see if I can bring that file back, is the file, the value is not in 18 decimals. It's in a 10 decimal format. So we have to make sure that we modify it to make sure that our answer is 18 decimals goes into the 10 decimal format. So we're doing a quick conversion of our value. So I have the unconverted answers, which is the API3 price feed, and just making sure it matches the decimals that are needed to go into this value. And then we make sure that the timestamp is updated at and started at based on this one, right? It's the same thing. It started at this timestamp and this is the timestamp. So those are same values. So we're going to match that. We're going to match that energy. And then this round ID and answered round ID are basically nothing important to API3 oracles. It's just a matter of like how the oracle handles their way of doing things. It doesn't really matter with the price. So we're just putting arbitrary data in here. So I'm just putting this like some random round ID. That way it's a little different from this one. So you can see that it is different. And so that's it. That's all. So all we're doing is we're reading the price feed from API3 oracles. And then in this function, all we're doing is matching that data. So when we return it, it's going to match the format that the smart contract needs. And that's it. So let me go ahead and do that. So I'm going to go ahead and do this adapter, and I'm going to deploy it. And I thought I closed my Discord, but it seems to be hidden open. But let me go back into the marketplace. Let me grab that ETH/USD. I'm going to go back into the price feed. There we go. Let me grab that. And so I want to say I'm using this ETH/USD. I'm going to deploy that. And if you have questions, go crazy on it. I'm checking the comments. All right. So
No
we
worries.
have this.
I'll
Go
let
for
you
it.
know if there's any questions for
Okay.
sure.
So I have this API3 adapter contract, right? And so I have a built-in read data feed to make sure that it's reading the data feed. So if I read it, there's my $3,626.79 and the timestamp, right? So I know my adapter contract is reading correctly. And then if I look at the last round, I'm seeing that it's making sure that the format is how I need it, right? With the right decimal. So you look, it has got rid of the trailing zeros to match the format that is needed by the other oracle, right? So now we're going to go back to our contract, which we are deployed, right? It's our fork code or something that we really want to work with. And so now we have to update the oracle. So I'm going to go ahead and grab the contract address of our adapter, and I'm going to paste it here. And then I'm going to update our contract oracle. And so now it's going to read our adapter. Our adapter is going to read the API3 feed, and then it should return our data as soon as it actually reads. Did it go? Or did it get stuck? Let me reload it again. No, what's going on? Let me redeploy it because I'm not sure if I'm having issues. So I'm going to redeploy that other oracle again. 1 second. There we go.
Real life coding, man. I
Oh,
love
yeah.
it. You gotta have some issues at some point, you know.
Oh, yeah. This is just how it happens. I'm going to deploy it with my aggregator here and just see if
Just so
that
everyone
goes.
knows it's real live coding. So yeah,
Yeah.
this is how it goes.
Let me make sure. Hold on. Make sure I'm on the right other oracle. Let me pop it here one more time. Okay. What's going on? Let's see. Let me refresh this because it is tripping.
Yes, sometimes, yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes Firefox does this. Oh, did I just kill all of my stuff when I
Ooh,
refreshed it?
oops.
Oh, how lame. It's okay. Takes a few seconds to redeploy it.
Yeah,
All
no
right. So let me
worries.
just do my adapter. And I'm going to grab my round ID and let me get that price feed integration. It's one of those things. It all works on the repo, guys, just in case.
Dude, I mean, any dev that's watching this knows that this is how it goes.
Yeah,
Sometimes you get stuck with some dumb thing for hours.
yeah.
So
Let
it's
me grab that adapter
more than
feed. Yeah, pop that in there.
your
Yeah, I
speed
don't know
run.
why my Firefox was tripping, but I'm just redeploying it right now, just for anybody watching in the background here. All right, so we have the data consumer, other oracle, get latest answer. There we go. It
Nice.
works. Let me go ahead and make that in there. So what I did was I deployed it with our aggregator v3 our aggregator interface on here, and so now you see that we are getting our price feed and everything on standard. And it's like, oh, it's sus, Billy. I don't believe you. We'll see that my round ID is 1844881, and if I look at the contract and I go to my adapter, and if I do the hard-coded ones, it's 1884 and then 2881. Right. So now I'm using my adapter to just mimic the data. I mean, that will always come in with that same data, so you can verify that it's coming and using your adapter. But now we're reading API3 price feeds instead of like no fees or anything. So I was able to successfully fork code that I found in like mainnet or some other chain. It's designed for another Oracle, and then bring it into mode and then just use API3 oracles, and I'm ready to rock. Right? I didn't have to refactor the code. I didn't have to make any changes on this code. I was just able to fork it and then just use it right out the box, and then use my own logic or whatever I want to add on top of it. Yeah.
That's sick. And
Yeah.
is it so yeah, that's super cool. So you find any code around that you want to fork and they have certain oracles, but you want to use API3, so you can just come in, put the adapter and start using API3 in the same code as before without touching it.
Right. Yeah. Like a lot of people have audited code or, stuff that they want to bring into, hey, we want to deploy on mode, but this Oracle or this Oracle's not there. We have to wait. I was like, well, no, you don't have to wait. We just deploy an adapter for each one of the feeds that you use, like ETHUSD, wrap BTC, for every Oracle that you need, there's an adapter, and you just bring the code. Right. And then you just you're live on launch day. Right. So like whatever you can find or whatever, is interesting to you. Also, I mean, like kind of to shill the next workshop of OEV is, and our slogan for OEV is like oracles that pay you, is like if you're using the oracles and then OEV happens, you get paid when someone updates that price feed, right? Whatever that bid value is, which is similar to MEV, that goes to your DApp, right? So that's one of those things of like, I, I know it's kind of biased. It's like, but why wouldn't you do it, right? So it's one of those, like anybody can give you a price feed, right? Like we kind of said, like whether it's Pepsi or Coke, it's still soda, right? It's like anybody can give you a price feed. Everybody's pretty solid. I mean, there's tons of Oracle solutions out there, but this is one of the unique ones, right? Where like, okay, you get a couple bonus features. It's something that we've been working on for like over a year on there, like of all the structures and like everything that happens in there. So it's one of these things that's been well thought out. It's not like, this last minute thing like, hey, this would be cool if we just added this. It's been something that's been tested for a long time on there. So like, that's kind of why we want to help people build the searchers. So being able to understand this, understand how the price feeds work, understanding how the market feeds work, understanding how we aggregate that data, and then seeing like, oh, okay, this is 3626. Let me just check CoinGecko. And okay, let's see, it's 36.21, right? So there's a $5 discrepancy. I can liquidate somebody right now at $1 difference. Let me update that price feed, boom, and then create, basically a nice ecosystem of searchers and whatnot. So that's the ultimate goal, is being able to, the people that are following this can then learn at the very beginning to be a very, very basic searcher, of learning how to do the liquidations, learning how that works and all that. So all the ecosystems that living on mode get to benefit from that.
I I love that, and I have a not a hard question, but I usually like, because you've done this, like this type of workshops. People usually can find resources online from you, like
Yeah.
documentation and mode in API3 on how to do these things.
Yeah.
But I like asking the people building it to know how to exploit it and actually take advantage of it, right?
Yeah.
And OEV sounds one of those opportunities.
Yeah.
I want to know your opinion. Is this being fully exploited right now? Like, is API3 OEV being fully exploited in general, or do you think there's still an opportunity to tap in and get your up in there and make money with it, like another
Oh,
revenue?
yeah. Yeah. Let me stop the screen share right here. Let me switch it back. Yes. So that's a very interesting topic, like with MEV in right now. So like MEV is a very, very big thing on mainnet, right? Yeah, flash bots, and obviously has the most liquidity. And
Yeah.
so with layer twos, we're dealing with sequencers, right? So theoretically, you can't bribe the sequencer to be first, depending on the chain you use. Just bringing up other chains, like Arbitrum is first in, first out. Whoever deploys it first in. Binance has their own sequencing of timing, right? Optimism Superchain has the ability to reorder certain transactions, right? So like really depending on what layer two you're using and what stack you're using, really heavily depends on OEV. So the way well, MEV can't really happen, right? Because you can't bribe one single validator because they get to choose. So you're not really doing any bribing. So MEV hasn't really existed. Now with more and more, dApps and more liquidity heading to the layer twos, and there's a lot of borrow lending. Obviously, DeFi is the one that brings liquidity. There's a lot of opportunity to be made across how many chains layer twos are out there, right? So, how do you bring a nice ecosystem to mode, right? Like, okay, dApps go, and all right, I can get a 5% deposit on USDC, but I can get that almost every other chain, right? But now if you have OEV and now dApps are getting money back, now that can offer 10% because of all the OEV bribes that go through. Now I can give that to the users, or I can fund more dApps, or I can fund more things. So like, it's brand new, right? This is something that like, hey, how come we didn't do that before? Like that was the number one question. Like, why haven't we been doing that, right? And it's like, it's kind of a new concept that a lot of people have been stuck on, and like, how does it work and whatnot. And that's just understanding how push and pull oracles work. We have a push oracle system by default, and then the OEV is like a pull network, so like it pulls down the price feed at the time that we need it to run the liquidation. It does require a couple skill sets, like being able to scan different positions, right? You need to database it. And that's kind of what we're teaching you, like, oh, where are the open positions, like how many borrow lending platforms are in mode, right? Are my RPC calls being used up? So you have to learn how to use multi-call, so like you're not burning out RPC requests every time you're doing searches. So if you take the time and you go through the workshop, there is money to be made. Basically, yeah,
You're dropping knowledge bombs here. I
yeah,
wanna I wanna take the next maybe 15 minutes to talk to
yeah,
you, because I really much enjoy like the technical workshop and you showing the code,
yeah,
and just motivating people to show them how easy it is to just copy paste some code and get a price feed.
yeah,
But then the I don't want to say the money. It's not
yeah.
even the money. It's like the
It's
innovation, and it is
yeah,
the money as well,
yeah,
right? But
yeah, yeah,
the what I love is like the new revenue systems, which at Mode we really value as well. Like
yeah,
we're thinking of that constantly on new economic ways of like incentivizing users and participants, right?
yeah, yeah.
Um, you mentioned push and pull oracles,
Oracles.
right? Like
Yeah,
push and
yeah,
pull, yeah, push and pull formats. What is each of them? So like very basic, what is each
yeah,
of them? Why would I choose each of them, or well, one or the other? And
yeah,
what are like advantages and disadvantages? And then you mentioned a little bit of the architect, or how API3 is leveraging
yeah.
both systems. If you can get deeper into that, I would love
For
that.
sure, for sure. So a push oracle is basically, we're paying the gas to bring that data on chain, right? Again, like the deviation, right? So again, using that 1% deviation, ETH is 2000. As soon as it hits 2020, we push that gas and bring that price on chain. So we pay that transaction fee on every chain, on everywhere that we support, which is like super expensive because we're like on every chain, right? And so every time there's a deviation or there's no change in price, like a stable coin, right? Like as USDC hasn't really changed much. Every 24 hours, we make sure to push something on chain to make sure that it's not stale, right? So that's how we push it. We constantly push the Oracle price on whatever. If it hits a certain price change, like if you hit exotics ones, like a meme coin, those things are going up and down all day within a certain range, right? So like that costs more gas, and then the stable coin's kind of like this until people get scared, right? And then like it's pretty stable all the time. So depending on how exotic it is how much we push, through the whole thing. So that's how push oracles work. Pull oracles work, you see that a lot in perpetuals, something like God, what's that big dApp on there? Well, basically a 100 leverage on there, like
Yeah,
GMX. There we go.
yeah,
GMX is the one.
yeah.
So like right before I do a bid, right? Let's say ETH is 3608. I want to make sure it's close as possible to that price, because the next block or whenever the Oracle updates, you want to make sure it's close, because I'm 100 time leveraging. So it's a lot of money to be made and lost. I'm making the user pay the gas to do that. So as soon as I hit request for this 100 time leverage, now the user is paying for that gas fee to make sure to grab the Oracle and get the latest price at that second of when I hit submit to get that latest price. So it's a little bit more exact, right? So until somebody else comes in and asks for another request, that Oracle doesn't get updated on chain. So for a borrower lending platform, it's not a very good idea, because you're making all your users pay all the gas every time when the deposit, right? Like if I deposit $50, oh, let me do another 50. It's very expensive gas wise. So push Oracle has been proven to show that, just having a general idea within range is very fair and safe to borrow and lend. It's just more cost efficient, especially when you're talking like heavy gas fees. And then for perpetuals, the ability to then just grab that information on the fly when you need it at that exact moment, because you don't need it again until later, or until like either the liquidation happens or not. Someone is willing to pay that liquidation price in order for you to get liquidated if you hit the leverage, right? And if you do make money, then you pay the gas to withdraw it. So that gets pushed after you. So that's the difference of the push. Push is the responsibility of the Oracle. We're the ones doing it. pull, we provide the data, but maybe offset the gas to certain places. Maybe we pay for it for the user, but that's an additional cost per every request. That every time there's a deposit, it's going to be a pull, right? So imagine, doing that for a borrow lending platform, it would just run everybody out of business, right? So like different models for different needs.
Right. I
Yeah,
love that.
yeah,
See, like that's why I love asking those things, because like you can maybe know what a push or pull schema looks like, right? Like
yeah.
how they work, but then actually understanding the benefits of it and if you actually need it or not, it's a different thing.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah,
I'll take this time to say thank you to all the nice comments that we're seeing.
yeah,
Billy, I can see you're famous. Everyone
yeah.
just loves you, and I agree with that. You're a very big presence in the whole Web3 developer community, so I love it. Love to have you here. Can you expand a little bit more on how API3 leverages both things? Like, yeah, would love
Yeah.
that. And where does the money come from? Are you guys sponsoring all of these things? Because again, you mentioned about how expensive can oracles get. And from Mode side, I can tell you, yes, they can get super expensive, and maintaining these things, it's not trivial.
Yeah.
So yeah,
So, yes. So infrastructure wise, that's something I'm going to share my screen on there.
yeah, let's do it.
Infrastructure wise, that's something we talk with the chains with to see like how we handle that, and making sure that dApps that are using our oracles are taken care of, in the very beginning. But let's say there's a specific price feed that you need, right? Let me just take wrap BTC here and see if that's been, so like this is not activated, right? Like it's not live. So if you had a dApp and say, you know what, I want wrap BTC in my dApp, it's not activated here. I'm gonna go ahead and activate it. What we do is we take the basic data of what, historically how much the price has moved in a bull run, or like in a bear market. We don't know what it is, but in average crab mode we have an idea of like how much gas it would be. So right now for testnet, this is what it would cost for 7 days of a price feed, and that's with a 1% deviation. So it's a guaranteed 1% deviation. If I did a 0.25, I needed more exact, you can see that price went up just a little bit because there's going to be more pushes, right? But that goes to the user that wants to use it. So I'm going to go ahead and purchase this and say, okay, I want this 0.25 deviation on there. So it's going to cost me 0.004 ETH. And so I'm going to go ahead and make that happen. And so what's really cool is that before it used to take a week, now it takes like a minute and we're live. Right. So now I have this price feed ready to go. I paid
Wow.
that fee to make that chain happen. So like it's basically the marketplace. If you need a feed and we support it, you can buy it right there on the spot. And then that we go to integrate, and that's your proxy address right there, and you use that for your smart contract on there. So one thing to note about those is that data is on chain, so anybody can use it. So like if I pay for this, literally anybody in the dApp can use it. But for OEV, and this is something I would like on a production level, if anybody updates this specific proxy price, that's mine. So like if someone goes bid something, that bid goes to me. So if somebody updated a price that you're using, right, and you didn't get your own feed, well, that money's going to me. So I always get your own proxy. Yeah,
Nice. I
yeah,
like that. So
yeah.
what I love here is that you're open in competition as well. So like
Hmm.
maybe you could even have a leaderboard or something of like the most popular proxies or stuff like, or like the ones that update their price the most, because like
Yeah,
I'm thinking, if I'm a small developer, I may be using someone else's price feed,
right.
and maybe every now and then updating it and paying a little bit, like every, like, I don't know, not even like constantly, whenever I need it, like in a long period of time. But
Yeah,
then I benefit from this app just getting updated a lot, and I'm okay with just giving the OEV to
yeah,
that feed, right?
yeah. Well,
That this
just
is interesting. Yeah.
I mean, just to like take like what the current meta is right now is, let's just use Aave for an example, right? So they have a
Yeah.
borrow lending platform, and so in order to keep the borrow lending platform healthy, they have to pay liquidation rewards, which is like about 5 to 10%. So they have $1 million deposited, and they have $70 million borrowed, right? And then someone does a liquidation for $1 million, and so there's a 5% reward they have to pay. They've lost that value, right? It went to the searcher and then went to the MEV guys. Aave got nothing out of that, like other than paying to be healthy. They basically lost TVL, and in this space, everybody loves measuring things by TVL or TVS and everything. So like their metric just went down by keeping healthy. And so now by using API3 oracles and OEV, they're getting some of that bid back. So instead of leaking 5%, 10% every time there's a liquidation, they're getting some of that back because the searcher is willing to pay, right? We all see how much people pay flash bots and all the bribes. Like a certain percentage of that goes back to the DApp. So instead of leaking out a full 5%, maybe they're leaking out 1%, 2%, depending on what the bids are. And so now they have this newfound value to then bring it back. So like that's the way the meta is right now. The DApp doesn't get anything out of it. There's no penalty fee that they take for themselves. It just leaves the network. So TVS, or the total value secured by oracles, really doesn't mean much right now, to be honest. Like, okay, these dapps use us, these dapps are being secured by us, but there's really no benefit, there's no money to be made by that. But now with API3 oracles, our TVS, those are dapps that you can do liquidations on, and then dapps that use that then have money to be made, right? Like, so now, oh, there's money making opportunity for me because I have an oracle that I can update and then make money off those liquidations. So like TVS now matters because we're using OEV. I mean, before it's just a metric.
I love that.
Yeah.
And it's just getting creative with the incentive systems and how things work,
Yeah.
which I love. And this concept of the marketplace, which is super interesting as well. Love it. I don't see any more questions in chats and DMs that I've been getting. There's some people that are not, that are a little bit shy, and they just
Yeah.
send me DMs asking questions, which is fine. Again, you can always reach out to me, to Billy, to the API3 team. Please join their Discord, check their documentation. Yeah, just feel free to go build, ask them. They're super available. Billy's all around. Just take care of his mental health. Try not to think too much, a little bit, fine. Yeah, and Billy, anything else you would like to add before
No,
closing the hour? Yeah.
no, we're live on mode now. Like we have oracles ready to go. It's obviously on the test end if you want to play around, but on mainnet we are ready for production. So like if it's something that you stumble on, something that you want to ask questions about OEV or how we can help you, more than happy to help you with the integrations team. Yeah, DM me. I'm pretty responsive within 24 hours. With a couple conferences coming up, ECC and a few other ones, I may be in and out, but there's always going to be someone to help you. But I'm kind of friendly-ish, so we'll see.
Really,
Yeah,
you are.
yeah.
We're gonna see you at FCC then as
Yep,
well.
yep, for
API.
sure, for sure. I want you to
Get
see. I
here.
want you to be throwing up API3 sign, API3.
Yeah, well, it will be awesome. The Mode team will be at FCC as well, walking around, meeting people, and just amazing protocols as well. So it will be awesome to see you there.
Yeah.
I'm getting already DMs as well. Well, here, are you coming to FCC, Fede? I am. Part of the Mode team is as well. I have a very long flight, so I'll be there for quite a few days. Billy, I hope, yeah, you'll be there as well, the API3 team as well.
Mhm.
And I'm getting a lot of DMs saying this was super useful, especially for builders, understanding better what API3 does. So yeah, again,
Yep.
give it a try. They're already live in Mode, in mainnet and testnet, which is awesome. And yeah,
Yep.
thank you so much.
Workshop
Yeah.
Workshop 2 will probably come a little bit after ECC on there. So that way, for those that are kind of curious, just because of the schedule, I'm just saying it now. Might as well. Yeah. And that's going to be covering OEV. So, we play around with the price feed. It's going to build off this first workshop, right? Understanding the price feeds, playing around with it. And then OEV is going to say, oh, okay, how can I update it? And then we'll take you through that whole process. And then
Yes,
after
for
that, yeah.
sure. We're
Yeah.
gonna have a lot more workshops coming in. They will take some time. We need to prepare them. Billy's a busy man as well, but we'll have all the content uploaded to YouTube, so you'll be able to enjoy it. Any questions that you may have, just please feel free to reach out. And yeah, happy to keep pushing out technical content to help you all builders build amazing stuff and innovation in DeFi specifically for us on Mode. Love it. Thanks
All
for
right.
being here, Billy, and for everyone listening. And see you in the next one.
All right, man. Have a good one, guys.
See ya. Bye bye.
See ya.